Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Journey to Happy podcast. I'm Olga, your host, and today we're going to talk about things that are meant to be, what it actually means, and how can we just accept whatever we're going through today because maybe it's going to land us exactly where we need to go, even if it's away from our plans. This past weekend, I got invited to the City Hall to give a talk in a workshop form to youth, girls ages 12 to 25, so girls and youth. And the subject was future leaders. And they wanted me to speak about mental health and how it relates to leadership and what would these girls need to know about mental health in order to explore and potentialize the leaders and the leadership that lives within them. I obviously was very excited. I was asked by Miss Canada, who, by the way, has been in the podcast before. Her name is Solange, and she invited me to come here, and I was the first speaker. And I had so many emotions after that event that I want to share with you guys, because I think I'm actually gonna share what I shared with them here with you in the podcast because of the emotions I had after that. I realized everybody needed to hear that same workshop and not just the girls that I was talking to that day. Here it goes. Are you ready? This is gonna be a juicy one. Okay. First of all, I want to begin by giving you some context here. I live in Canada, but I am originally from Colombia. If you're new to the podcast, that's some info that you want to have prior to this episode. And so I've got like a big passion to talk to other immigrants because I understand what it's like to start out of nothing and become whoever you want to become. And I came to Canada when I was a teenager. I was 19, like finishing my 19th year. And so I was so inspired to talk to youth who might be that age or coming up to that age and explaining to them what it was like for me to be that age and be faced with so many challenges, like new culture, new language, new weather. And everything seemed so different and so far apart from what I had thought I will have in my life, what I had in my life at the time. And I could have had all the elements to be depressed, to be disappointed with life, to choose to not do much with my life moving forward in disappointment of the life that I was chosen for. Instead, I did wonderful things. I'm still doing wonderful things. And I use that experience and all other ones that I'm going to tell you here today to my best and highest advantage. And so I want to talk to you guys about that. Okay. All right. When I was, okay, let me just bring you back to the early beginning. I grew up in a beautiful family life. We were 5 kids. We're still our 5 kids. And I am kid number 4th. And my entire childhood, I had experienced what I thought at the time were heavy feelings of rejection and not feeling loved. And I'll tell you in a moment why that was. My personality still is to this date is one where I just share what's in my head. Hence this podcast. This podcast gives me the best opportunity to be myself. And so when I was a child, I also had this tendency to just share every thought I had. And I wouldn't discriminate which ones were good to share, which ones were not. Now, I want you to imagine that I am child number 4th. So I've got siblings that are 9, 8 years, 5 years older than me. And I also was very close to all of my cousins. My family had always, like every weekend, all of my aunts and uncles will come together, so like large groups. And I'm amongst the youngest of my cousins. And so I was always with older cousins who were highly inconvenienced by my ability to share everything that I was thinking. And my thoughts often were about things that I saw them do. So you can imagine that innocently, because my intention was not to be, what do you guys call this? Title teller? I wasn't wanting to tell on others. It was always so innocently, but I will excitedly come home to tell my mom or my aunts, look what I just saw. I just saw my brother smoke a cigarette. And then my mom, of course, will be like, thank you for that information. And my brother will get in trouble. Or I will come home after shopping for Mother's Day gift and I will be telling my mom, Mama, we got you a surprise. It's a shirt. Now, as an adult, I understand what was going on. My teenage cousins and siblings, and even my parents and adults have to be really careful of what they shared in front of me because I just had the innate ability to share all of my thoughts and share everything I saw and everything I heard. To this date, this is who I am. I'm just obviously aware now of what's appropriate to share and what's not. But younger me didn't. And although I think to myself, like, that was so genuine and so beautiful and so expressive and colorful, it also brought me a lot of pain because I couldn't understand why my siblings, my cousins, and sometimes adults, in my opinion, would reject me, would not want me to be there, would ask me to leave the room so they could have a conversation. And in my tiny brain, which hadn't finished developing, I started taking this as signs of rejection and not being loved. And I remember exactly just a few weeks before my 11th birthday, I have a summer birthday. And for those of you who have summer birthdays, you might not be aware of this if your birthday is in March or in October. But summer babies, we struggle with our birthday parties because we're not in school. So reaching to our friends is difficult. And you have to remember, when I was a child, having a birthday in the middle of the summer, we also didn't have cell phones or emails. So you kind of left the school year and were in such a disconnect. Unless you called your friends at home and they were at home and you could talk to them, it was very hard to plan things out. You will mail a letter or an invitation. Anyways, all of this to say that my birthday party was never or almost never with classmates. And so it used to be a bit of a depressive time for me because I wanted to have a big party. Well, this one time, it was getting closer to my birthday. It was the summer break. My cousins and siblings who I had like right next to me were not all that willing to play with me. And I had told myself these thoughts so many times, I actually believed it. Like, there was not an ounce of my body that didn't believe that I was rejected and unloved by everyone. Like, I think I kept telling to myself, nobody loves me, nobody cares about me. One night I went to bed and I was talking to God and I said to God, God, if nobody loves me, I don't want to be here. And I'm not impressed with what I said next, but I did say it. And other than telling this story, I have never, ever, ever said that again. The words were, I wish I could die. I wish I could die so that I don't have to have these feelings and they don't have to reject me. And I meant it. 2 weeks go by, I start having stomach pain. My mom takes me to 3 different doctors. None of them diagnosed my simple appendicitis. So if you have appendicitis, you have to have medical intervention, surgery right away so that they can save your life. It's normally not dangerous, but if it's left unattended or misdiagnosed, it can become very dangerous. Well, 3 doctors didn't diagnose me. You bet it became very dangerous. Next thing I know, I am at the hospital. Once again, my mom is taking me. This time I'm not walking, I'm barely talking. I'm in so much pain. My body is curved entirely. I couldn't stand up straight anymore. And my mom is telling this doctor all of my symptoms and what other doctors said. And this doctor, without even touching me, said to my mom, you are too late. I was rushed into surgery. My parents were told I was likely not going to come out of surgery alive. All of my organs were infected with the exception of my brain. But my blood and every organ in my body had been infected. And they just didn't think I was going to make it. Well, I'm telling you the story, so I obviously made it. I left that surgery, 5-hour surgery, into a medically induced coma, in which I stayed for a couple of weeks. And eventually I healed. When I woke up from the coma, And my mom told me what had happened, because when you're in a coma, you're not conscious that you were sleeping for 10 days or 12 or however many. You're not here. That's it. My mom explained to me that I had been really ill, that I had almost died, that it was a miracle that I was alive. The doctor said, and I quote, I was 60% dead, which means most of my organs were not working. And so my mom explained to me I was still like, I had just made it, but we still had like a lot of turbulence to go through, because my lungs were not working properly, my kidneys were not working properly, all major organs were not doing their job ideally, and so I was still needing to be hospitalized. And I remember having two thoughts. You know how everybody has a story of what happened to them in a coma? I didn't experience anything while I was in a coma that I can recall, but once I gained consciousness, I remembered the thought I had before I had this medical condition. And so I had two thoughts in my head. First one was, my thoughts are powerful. And the second thought I had was, I want to help as many people as I can possibly help utilize their brain to their best advantage, not against them. And while I initially thought I was going to be a doctor and help people save lives that way, life brought me exactly to where I am today, mindset life coach for women who overthink. and so those were the two thoughts that I had. Now, when I was invited to talk to this youth in this group, I was a little bit out of my comfort zone because I worked with adult women. And so I started thinking and brainstorming. How can I possibly bring this message home to them? How can I possibly teach them about mindset, the elements that go behind a healthy mental health, that have nothing to do with genetics, that have nothing to do with our environment, but with our choices, with our willingness to be deliberate about the thoughts that we have about who we are, how capable we are, about our thoughts of magic, of what can actually happen for ourselves. You see, what almost killed me might have been the appendicitis that was not diagnosed, but really were my thoughts of wanting to check out, that were so misled by thoughts I had, by the feelings I had and the thoughts I had that were not accurate. I have always been loved. I have always been welcomed. So then I realized I couldn't speak to them as the Olga that I am right at this moment, that I really needed to consult with Olga of 1991, the Olga that turned 11 at the hospital in intensive care. And I asked that Olga, what do you need to tell these girls about leadership, about greatness, about belief, about mental health? And so she told me to give them 4 strategies to keep their mental health healthy. And I don't care how old you are. I want to say that when I was done, it was the moms of the girls, as well as the girls, but the moms were like, you were speaking to me the entire time. So it doesn't matter how old you are here today. I want to share this with you because it is helpful. Step number 1. And what is good about these 4 steps is that everybody can do them. You don't have to be an extraordinary human. You don't have to have money. You don't have to have anything other than the willingness to apply these 4 strategies, okay? So step number 1, this one is the one you're going to fight me the most on. You're going to want to say impossible. That cannot be it, because to your brain is going to be too easy. And somehow our brain thinks if it's not difficult, it's not possible. It's not going to be effective. So I first want I want you to know that your brain will fight you on this one. But the beauty of this one tool is that it goes with you wherever you go. It costs you 0 money. You are already using it. We're now just going to bring our awareness. And you were born with it. This one tool, there's research behind it that shows that it keeps the brain healthy. That if we can synchronize it, that we can learn to manage it and control it, we can have a reduction of anxiety, improve of our health, improve of our immune system, our nervous system loves when we can gain control over our breath. That's it. Is your breath. So here's the example I use with the girls. I made them jump up and down, run in the same spot that we're sitting. They got up, they moved. Now I want you to imagine that if you had done that, what would have happened to your heart rate? It would have gone up. Your breath would have been agitated, which is kind of what happens when we have thoughts of unsafety. When we have thoughts that make us feel overwhelmed or anxious or worried or sad, our heart rate goes up and we become agitated. Our breath becomes agitated to match the energy of our thoughts, our brain. So the first thing I want you to master and to really give importance to is the managing of your breath. So once they were running and they stopped, I made them place that hand on their heart and they could all feel how fast their heart was going. And then we all sat down and all we did was take some deep inhales and deep exhales. So the exhales longer than the inhales. We were just sitting there to take the time to breathe until we could feel a difference, until we could feel the heart rate going down. The room became so peaceful. And the girls noticed that they were in fact able to manage their breath. And so next time that their mind is going places that brings the body to a state of agitation, now they know they can use their breath. Now you know you can use your breath. I want you to do this. I want you to never forget that the best tool that you can have to self-manage, to mitigate the physiological response of stress lies within you. Now, you guys, what do you think helped me when I was in intense pain and the doctors didn't diagnose me properly? And so my mom was also saying, Olga, it must be in your head. How did I make it past survival average? Of most people with appendicitis would have died way before I actually managed to make it to the hospital. It was my breath. Nobody had to tell me this. I just was breathing to cope with the pain I had, which was intense. When I moved to Canada as a 19-year-old, came here as a refugee, not by choice, obviously. I would have rather stayed in my country if that had been a safe option. I had to stop going to law school. I had to break up with my boyfriend. I had to leave my friends, my family, my home, my life, my culture. And the only friend I had while adjusting to all the changes was my breath. And trust me, I used it. And later when I wanted to have a child and the doctor told me due to that illness I had when I was a child, I was very unlikely to have a baby. And so my lifelong dream of becoming a mom suddenly became an impossibility and my heart was broken. My best friend was my breath. I had to breathe through that. In fact, inside my Reset Your Mindset formula, I talk about the breathe through method. Which is, you can breathe through it, you can get past it. If you forget to breathe through it, if you want to resist it, the heart rate goes up, the breathing goes really fast, you can faint. You're not processing it. When I went to deliver my baby and they told me he got stuck in the birth canal and I needed to go into OR for an emergency C-section, my brain went crazy because the last time I was in a surgery room, unplanned, it was for them to save my life and it was unlikely that I was going to make it. And even if I didn't intend for it, that's where my brain went. Will I survive? Will my baby survive? All the losses, all the trauma I've experienced trying to conceive, plus in my life previously, it all became so present just moments before as they were rolling me into OR to give birth to my son through a C-section. And I entered a panic state. I was begging the anesthesiologist to inject me something to calm my nerves. And she told me they couldn't until after I gave birth. So you know what I remembered? To breathe. And when my baby was born and I heard him cry for the first time, when we met for the first time, when I heard that cry, that sound that just penetrated the walls of that OR, all I could think about was how grateful I was that he was breathing. So next time your brain tells you the breath is not important, I want you to remind the brain that the breath is the reason you are still around. And what a beautiful gift and powerful tool we were born with. Step number 2, learn to listen to your own voice. A big part of our mental health declining is that we stop listening to ourselves. We neglect ourselves, we neglect our inner voice, we neglect our inner conversations. And instead, we give so much importance to what everybody around us says, but we lose contact and connection with who we are. So 19-year-old me who moved to Canada had the best counselor of all times. You know what that was? My pen and my paper. I had a journal and I would write down all of my thoughts, and I would become so aware and clear of what was going on within me. I would hear my voice this way through writing. Now, I know some of you are not a big fan of writing and journaling. Record yourself talking. Either way, take a pause to ask yourself, what is my opinion about that? What do I really think about this? And give power to your voice. You have to give power to your voice. If you don't give power to your voice, how are you expecting others to give power to your voice? Even if they give power to your voice, if you do not stand behind your own voice and the power that it brings with it, if you don't love your own voice, when people listen to you and think, oh, you're right, this is absolutely true, you're so wise, you're gonna say, actually, who am I? Who am I to be speaking? Which, by the way, crossed my mind when they invited me for this event. Who am I to speak about leadership and mental health and greatness? Step number 3 is to talk to yourself like you talk to somebody that you love. There is no surprise here that our mental health and our confidence is damaged on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, by the way in which we communicate with ourselves. That mean inner dialogue. The way in which we speak to ourselves can increase our confidence or completely decrease it. And so if you begin to take note of how you think, and then you begin to give importance to how you think, to that voice, and then you begin to talk to yourself like you talk to somebody that you love, with kindness, with understanding, there is no way your mental health will not thrive within a very friendly inner environment. When I was a therapist, I worked with all people, all kinds of people. And no matter what their human suffering was, at the end of the day, what was perpetuating that pain was their toxic inner environment, how they saw themselves. Inside Reset Your Mindset, we started at Reset, but it's really work that I do with my Becoming the CEO clients. We have a whole module on the self concept. And so to explain it to you in a few brief words is deciding, how do you want to see yourself as? What concept of yourself you want to have? And how can you, on a regular basis, work towards aligning all of your thoughts and emotions towards that concept that you want to have of yourself? Lastly, and I'll leave you with this one, step number 4 is very simple, and it is all about magic. It is believing in possibilities. It's belief, period. Is believing even when the evidence is not here yet. That I believed I was going to make it. I believed I was going to be a mom. I believed I was going to stand someday in that same building that 19-year-old me thought was so big and intimidating, and I was going to give back to my community. And that dream came true last weekend. There I was, sharing the story of that 11-year-old me who thought one day all of these life experiences will help me help others, will help me teach others that I, in fact, was given a second chance to stay alive, that I was, in fact, chosen for these hardships so that I could explain to you my lessons, what I've learned, so that you hopefully don't have to go through those. So it occurred to me at that very morning, in that very time, that perhaps it was all meant to be. That perhaps every life experience I've had up until that moment was so that I could stand there with that microphone and share what I've lived, what I've learned, how resilient I've become because of how I've managed my mind through my breath, through believing, through talking nicely to myself, and by honoring my inner voice, by loving my voice. So I don't know if you've watched the movie Encanto. And if you have, then you know that this last scene I'm going to share is so powerful. And that's all about. This movie is all about a family that they were all granted magically this gift. And so one is very powerful, like strong. One makes out of anything flowers and look beautiful. One can speak to the animals. One can heal with her hands. And this one girl had no gift. And the entire movie is surrounding how she had no gift. Well, the last scene, the grandmother of this little girl gives her a doorknob that is brand new. It's gold looking, very shiny, and says to her, "This is your gift." So this little girl with curiosity looks to the doorknob to find what the gift is and notices her reflection, her self-reflection in this big, bright doorknob. And the grandmother says, "The gift is you, all of you." And I want to say that to you today. Your gift is you, all of you. So what can you do to sharpen your brain, to go gift the planet and the world with your gift, all of you? Thank you for listening. I'll see you next Monday. Bye now.